Ciao guys, I'm Adriano from Italy, and in this video I'm going to describe 3 things that I personally believe are better in the USA than in Italy. Needless to say, this is my personal opinion. I'm not here to create some sort of debate of whether USA is better than Italy or vice versa. I'm a big fan of my country, Italy, but I'm also a big fan of the US, and I would just like to share some personal thoughts. Just to give you a bit of context, I've been to the US a few times. I've visited around 30 out of the 50 states. I've explored the US by car, by train, by bus, by bicycle, and sometimes even on foot. What I'm trying to say is that I believe I know my shit. Anyway, enough with the fuss. Here are the 3 things I believe are better in the US than in Italy. The first one is nature. Nature in the United States is on a completely different level. It just hits different. One of the main reasons I would say is its vastness, its size. Of course, if you compare it to a country like Italy, but also other countries in Europe which are much smaller and much more densely populated, US nature really gives you this feeling of infinity and also feeling very small compared to your natural surrounding. I really felt this when I was in Colorado, in the Rocky Mountains National Park, looking 360 degrees and not being able to see the horizons. Another time was in California. I actually cycled the Pacific Coast Highway, and when you're in the Mediterranean, you have this feeling that on the other side you have Spain, whereas when I was there in California cycling onto the Pacific Ocean, it gave me this feeling of, well, there was no limit basically. Another really cool thing about American nature is that it's mostly untouched, it's very raw, and also nature in the US is very solitary. It's very difficult here in Italy to wander on a beach or be on a mountain and having this feeling of being just yourself. There are many occasions where, while visiting American nature, I was simply on my own, and that was amazing. The second thing, which I believe is way cooler in the US than it is in Italy, it's open roads. Road trips in general. I'm not saying that you won't be able to experience a cool road trip in Italy. If you're here, I would definitely recommend to rent a car and visit the peninsula. However, roads in the US are, to me, the coolest in the world.
I stand by you when you're falling, when the river is calling.
There is really a culture on roads and road tripping. You see this in books like On the Road from Jack Kerouac, in movies like Easy Rider, Forrest Gump, and also of course in music, Bob Dylan, Bruce Springsteen, Go Boss. Roads in the US, they give you this strong feeling of liberation. It's kind of a meditating experience. There were times where I felt that I was alone, completely alone in that moment, as if I was the only driver in the world. I know this sounds ridiculous, but it's a feeling which I never had here. For your information, I actually traveled the USA coast to coast 3 times. Once with my girlfriend. We went from Florida all the way to Los Angeles on Highway 10. A second time on a Greyhound bus from LA to New York City. And the third one, the coolest one, on the very famous Route 66 with an amazing and very subtle Mustang. Third and last thing, which I believe is cooler in the United States as opposed to Italy, is the people's friendliness and openness. Am I saying that Italians are dickheads and we are unfriendly and would not talk to you if you come to our country? No, not at all. What I'm saying is that the majority of the trips that I did in the United States, I did them on my own. While I was alone, I never felt lonely. I was pleased to find out that Americans have this very genuine culture of hospitality, and it seems very sincere. Approaching you, of asking you questions, and conversations would naturally evolve.
Go, Pax, go!
This is not very familiar in Italy in general, or in Europe, I would say. People are more wary here. It takes more time for us to open up, to become friendly, whereas in the US people naturally show a lot of interest in you, and people always gave me amazing tips on my trips. With my dad last year, we walked from LA to San Diego and had very little idea where we were going. People in towns along California were always so kind. They would help us out and show us the way. Also, what I found is that people in the US are generally more open to ambition. And I really got to witness this throughout some of my trips, especially when I cycled California. I could see people pushing me to do more, even though it made no sense what I was doing. Whereas in Italy, we sometimes have more of a judgment towards people who are less, linear in some ways. Whereas in the US, it's very glorified if you think outside of the box. And that's pretty cool to me. So these were the 3 things that I believe are better in the US as opposed to Italy. It's nature, it's open roads, and also the friendliness and openness of people, especially during the first interactions. Having said this, would I live in the United States? No. As much as I'm a big fan of the country, I am a bigger fan of my country, of Italy. But for sure, I love the idea of being able to come back. Let me know if you agree with what I said. Let me know if you think it's complete bullshit. Whatever your opinion. I'll see you next time. Ciao guys. Ciao Marta.
Ciao.